I'm Julian G. Simmons, and this is Our Gen Pod. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. And for those of you who are new to our podcast, welcome. We have a great episode for you today and a special July 4th announcement afterwards, so stay with us. Friendship. It's one of the keys to happiness and crucial as we age. We depend on our friends and they depend on us. At least that's how it's supposed to work, but a lot of us tend to let it slide. Our friends drift away and life gets lonely. Not for everyone, of course. Some of us stay in touch with old friends and continue to make new ones, but that's becoming less and less common as we age, leading to what many medical researchers, academics, and legislators are calling an epidemic of loneliness. Former Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy says, "Loneliness is far more than just a bad feeling. It harms both individual and societal health. It is associated with a greater risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and premature death. It's obviously a serious threat, one which a lot of us overlook." Today's episode is part 2 of my interview with Dr. Rebecca Adams, professor of sociology and gerontology, health and human sciences at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. She has published 58 research papers and books on friendship as we age. We've heard profound and thoughtful comments from many of you on what friendship means to you. In this episode, Dr. Adams explains how it works and what to do if we find ourselves falling into that dangerous epidemic of loneliness. If you haven't listened to part 1 of this interview, you might want to back up to episode 29. It's definitely worth listening to all the knowledge and advice Dr. Adams shares with us about friendship. Episode 26 has those personal perspectives from our listeners that you also might not have heard. At the end of the last episode, we were asking about how men can overcome our stubborn stoicism and make new friends. We pick up there as we continue our conversation. Here is part 2 of our talk with Dr. Rebecca Adams. Men tend to be more stoic, and there is a competitiveness between men, and there's this thing about they have to be the strong ones, and they often don't keep up their friendships. And then say they've retired from their job or lost their partner, and they find themselves out there. What do they do about it? How do they break through that so that they can get some friendships that will support them and nurture them?
Well, it all starts with finding something you're interested in and getting involved in it and setting yourself up to interact with people you think you'll have things in common with and want to pursue a friendship with them and seeing what happens. Maybe it will be a good friend. Maybe that friend will become a partner.
Do you think there's an epidemic of loneliness going on in the world? And not just with older people. I think a lot of it started from the pandemic.
Well, even before the pandemic, there was a lot of literature talking about increases in loneliness. And let me make a distinction between being alone and being lonely. You don't have to be alone to feel lonely. There was an old book in the 60s called The Lonely Crowd, and you can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely. Now, certainly, if you don't interact with people frequently enough, that can lead to feelings of loneliness, and COVID certainly put a damper on our social interactions. So we were interacting at least face-to-face with people less frequently. And that was particularly hard on older adults who had been told they were the most vulnerable to COVID And so, yes, I think COVID increased that epidemic you're talking about, but there were data before the pandemic that loneliness was becoming an issue, and it affects your subjective well-being, which in turn can affect your health and longevity. And that's why people are taking it very seriously at this point and worrying about making sure people have opportunities to interact. Not everyone needs the same amount of interaction to feel connected. So there's a lot of individual variation. But I think what we learned from COVID is, once again, that we have to maintain our relationships and find ways to stay connected.
So what are some of the obvious effects that the lack of friendships have on us as we age?
Well, since friendships provide us with both emotional support and increasingly instrumental support, it can have an impact on us in many ways. The emotional part, if you don't have emotional support, it can lead to depression, anxiety, all those things that come about when you don't have support and have issues that you need to discuss or to disclose or get help with. But also, there are things that friends do for us, especially as we get older, that are important to us in other ways. Just checking up on us. I finally did get COVID, and a friend brought me over-the-counter cold medication, and another friend brought me some of the ingredients I was missing to make myself chicken soup. And those are things that friends did for me because I don't have any family who lives in the same town with me. So I rely on my friends when I need that kind of instrumental support, and I always have.
I'm going to switch a little bit here, but another person that we had on the podcast was author Catherine Ryan Hyde, who wrote Pay It Forward. Now, I've known Catherine since high school. We were good friends in high school, and as she matured, she became more of an introvert, even though she's written like over 40 best-selling books. I think that's part of the writer's life in a way, but she said that her best friends are her animals. She has a horse, she has a mini horse, she's got a dog, she's got cats, and she absolutely loves the relationship she has with her animals, and I kind of can relate to that. I'm definitely an animal person myself. So is it possible, do you think, for animals to, I don't know if I want to say replace the human friendship, or is it equally important? Can it do the same things?
Animals can certainly provide you with emotional support, and there are service dogs who provide instrumental support. So yes, you can have a friendship with an animal. It's why they often do pet therapy.
Yeah, well, like in hospitals, for example.
Right.
In nursing homes, they bring in animals to create a connection because sometimes people react to animals more than they do to people.
Yes.
But let me ask you another question. In the past, and I guess things are changing, but a lot of the research said that the most important thing was family. And the world has changed, I think, since then, hasn't it? Since that kind of research has come out and that we've realized that friendships are equally important, especially as we age.
Yeah, things have changed. And when I started doing research on friendship, even then, back when I was in graduate school, the friendship literature already showed that really friendships had a bigger impact on well-being than family relationships did. And whether you had friends or not, especially a confidant that made a difference to your well-being, there was some understanding that friends were important. And for the reasons we discussed earlier, you're more likely to have something in common with them, and you're more likely to be empathetic and supportive, right? So even that, but now...
And maybe less judgmental too, right?
Perhaps. But now we're in what some people have called the age of independence. And it means that friendship is taking on a new role in our lives. And people are beginning to depend on their friends, where people used to only depend on their families.
Right. It's a much more intense emotional relationship with your friends that creates a special bond.
Yes.
So that brought me to another thing is, I've read a lot about how older people who are more open to living in communal situations where they share living spaces. I'm not talking about people in nursing homes. I'm just talking about people who don't want to live on their own and want the connection of other people. And that's what communes did back in the day, wouldn't you say?
Yes. And there's also a tendency towards lifestyle communities, like retirement communities for people who were actors and all these flown retirement communities. Once again, it's a way to ensure you're living with people you have things in common with and can make friendships with.
So let me ask you another question about social media. Now, there's starting to be research on the fact that it's not healthy to replace all of your interactions with people just through social media, that we need the actual in-person connection to really have an impact on our lives. What do you feel about the internet and social media and all that? Do you think it's an okay replacement for friendships?
Well, there's all sorts of things about physical contact with people. If you think about it as a continuum, there's less bandwidth of the internet than there is face-to-face. We pick up on fewer cues. We don't use all of our sensors when we're on the internet. It's changing. I mean, technology's getting better and better. And when people first started AOL chat rooms and things like that, there was much less ability to communicate more fully with video. And so at that time, there was evidence that people didn't make new friends on the internet, that they just reinforced friendships that they already had. Now I think people are actually meeting each other on the internet. And so it's becoming a better source of friends than it was before.
Yeah, there's another person that we talked to who's also a therapist, and he was talking about that social media doesn't create the chemistry, the endorphins, the oxytocin that you get from actually being in person with people that you enjoy and the laughter that you can create by being together in a group of friends. I know to me that it feels a lot different when I'm actually in person with people than it does if I'm doing a Zoom with them. It's like you get that invisible energy that is missing when you're talking to someone through Zoom or whatever. I just don't think it's the same reality.
Well, certainly the endorphins, I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking, the endorphins. But I will tell you that during COVID, I attended one party on Zoom that was just as much fun as every other party I've attended with the people who were in this session. There were breakout rooms. One of them was doing crafts, and one of them was playing instruments. And I mean, there were all these things going on just the way there would have been at a party among these people if we'd been face to face.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of creativity going on and inventiveness as far as figuring out how can we use social media to bring a connection between us. So I think that it definitely played a big part in keeping us in survival mode while the pandemic was going on. But now, is that a good thing to keep doing instead of actually physically getting together?
Well, there's all sorts of things about physical contact. You know, colleges had to pivot and go online. And I was already teaching online when the COVID pivot occurred, but it's led to a lot of criticism of online learning. And I just want to say personally, I love Zooming with students for their required appointment because instead of meeting me in my office, I'm in their homes. I meet their parents, their children, their pets. I see how they decorate their rooms. I feel like I have gotten to know my students better and have, in some cases, closer relationships with them because I've Zoomed with them.
I'm going to be a little bit of devil's advocate here, but there's a recent cartoon of a couple of people who are at a funeral, and there's all these empty seats, and the one person says, "I don't understand. He has 2,000 plus friends on Facebook." So it's like, how really authentic and how deep are those friendships that you're making online? I understand with students, in that case, it's probably a really great thing. But as far as people who are trying to create friendships and maintain friendships, It's like someone else we were asking about friendship, and she said that her daughter became very ill, and somebody actually sent her through the mail a card. And how the impact the card had on her was profound because it felt so much more authentic than someone sending an e-card or a text saying, I feel so bad for you or whatever, or I'm here for you. I think there's something about using convenience for friendship that makes it feel inauthentic.
Right. And even taking it to email off social media or to text is a step in the friendship direction. And so anything we do that involves increased effort and intentionality is going to deepen a friendship, strengthen a friendship. And now writing a card is so unusual, it would be an act of friendship.
Interesting. I want to ask you about another aspect of friendship. A lot of people, when you talk to them on the phone, you call them and you say, hey, how are you doing? And then they talk for a half an hour about themselves and they never ask you about you.
Okay.
I think that happens a lot in relationships and friendships where one is doing all the talking and you forget to ask the other person how they're doing. How do you create a balance there so that you can say to your friend without offending them, hey, or shutting them up completely?
That's another definition of friendship, that they're reciprocal. We expect reciprocity. So if I ask you how you're doing, it's reasonable in a friendship to expect you to ask me the same question in return. If you have a close friend who does that, you probably have accepted that about them, and it doesn't affect your satisfaction with the relationship. But if you're establishing a new friendship with somebody, a casual relationship, and you're thinking about, will this turn into a friendship, that can be a signal that you're not satisfied with the relationship. That's a pretty robust finding in the friendship literature. So there are two ways to deal with it. You can be loyal to that friend, even though this is irritating, and that's likely to happen with friends you consider very close, or you can exit the relationship and just let it fade away. Or, this is the most important one, you can voice it and tell the person, this is a problem for me, and hope that it gets better.
What about honesty? Now, honesty obviously plays a huge role in the health of a friendship. Someone had said that one of the great things about friendship is that someone can tell you the truth when no one else will or can. They can call you on your nonsense, whereas that might be hard for other people in other types of relationships to do.
Right. And that's kind of the other side of self-disclosure. It's not only that friends self-disclose, they also can be honest with each other about self-disclosure. But, I want to make it clear that some of the problems people have with their friends have nothing to do with how they interact with each other. Sometimes, as you already mentioned, it's status differences or power differences that get in the way. Sometimes it's things that have nothing to do with the friendship, factors external to the friendship. And sometimes it's just that friends don't cross paths anymore because they've relocated or changed jobs or changed their patterns or retired or whatever. And so not all of these things are in our control, is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes friendships end in ways that we couldn't have prevented.
Yeah, I've been in situations like that where at the beginning of my long-term intimate relationship, I had a very good friend who just couldn't accept the fact that I wasn't going to be single anymore. Mm-hmm. And it created all these strange, weird problems that I wasn't expecting and made the relationship just something that couldn't continue anymore. And I tried everything and I just kept finding that it wasn't working and had to give up a friendship that was a very good friendship for many years. And I struggled to find a reason why that was happening. But over time, I learned that it had to be that way. But we do grow apart from each other. And it's like, how do we know when it's time to move on from a friendship?
Generally, we don't make conscious decisions to end a friendship. It's one of the things that social media has kind of messed around with a little, because the most common way for friendships to end in our society is just for the friends to drift apart. And social media has this unfriending thing going on, which means sometimes people have had to make conscious decisions. But I think even on social media, people just stop liking the posts. It's not that they consciously unfriend somebody. There is researching, by the way, but that's my impression. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it isn't common for people to actually say to a friend, I'm ending this friendship.
How do friendships change with age?
Well, the common impression is that as we get older, we have fewer and fewer friends. And that's not accurate. There are many different paths that people follow with their friends. Yes, some people have fewer friends, but it's not at all that we get fewer and fewer friends as we get older. It really, we follow different patterns, and they're reactive to what has come before in our life course. If you haven't had the time to make friends, I mean, you were talking about our cohort and how men had to work and be the breadwinner. Well, I think that many men in our cohort, when they retire, want to invest in friendship because they haven't had the time to do that as much as they were middle-aged.
Right.
And that's kind of a self-correction. And I think it's true, whatever our paths have been through life, that when we're freed of whatever obligations we had, raising children, working, whatever, that it's natural to want to compensate for the things that we didn't have a chance to experience.
Playing catch up in a way. For me, I would say that the thing that has most surprised me is how well some relationships have endured time.
Right. I guess from a personal point of view, I find it very surprising that the friendships I made when I was young were such wise decisions on my part. I mean, I'm flabbergasted whenever I'm together with people from high school or college, even if they weren't close friends of mine back then, how much I have in common with them and how much I enjoy interacting with them.
So this is kind of full circle to what we were talking about in the beginning, like with high school friends and realizing that special bond that we have no matter where we've gone into what walks of life.
Yeah, it's even more than that. It's more that, and this is where the literature comes in, it's like life sorted me into pockets of possibility that had enduring meaning to me. Social media has given me an opportunity to kind of lurk around in the lives of people I didn't know that well when I was younger, but who I knew. And I'm shocked at how I now realize that there were many more people I could have developed closer friendships with because I really was given the opportunity to develop friendships with people who had a lot of potential. And I think it does go back to the beginning where I was saying our closest friends are the ones we've known the longest. I would also say that younger people need to take advantage of the opportunities they have to interact freely with people they have things in common with while they're still in school, whether it be high school or college, because life takes us in so many different paths where we don't necessarily ever find commonality again, where we can really self-disclose and be open. And to look back on those opportunities, I keep thinking, oh, wow, I should have spent more time with this person. I obviously would have developed a really close relationship with them if I had taken advantage of the opportunity. And that's surprising to me. Not just that my old friendships have endured, that there were many missed opportunities and that I could have had many more friends if I had just focused on that.
Well, you probably ended up with the ones you needed. That's what I believe. Anyway, summing this up, Rebecca, what advice would you give for maintaining and making new friendships for people at our age?
Well, I would say The first thing would be to find activities that really interest you, because people like you are going to be attracted to them as well. Second, develop a routine of interacting in whatever setting it is that these activities take place. Third thing is, when you find people you have things in common with, make a point of talking to them one-on-one, stepping aside from the loud music or meeting before an activity for dinner or whatever, and get to know them on an individual level so that you feel free to self-disclose and reveal yourself. And that would be the other thing, to be honest and open about who you are, so you're developing a friendship on solid ground. And then maintain that. Be intentional. Don't let your friendships just drift away. Don't be offended if someone hasn't called you for a while. They might have a reason. Call them and be conscientious about it. I think we have a tendency to just let friendships happen and just neglecting them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm guilty of it. But if we want to maintain friendships, we can't do that.
Yeah, I agree totally. Well, Rebecca Adams, it was Dr. Rebecca Adams. It was really wonderful talking with you and hearing all of your thoughts about friendship. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And we actually would love to talk to you in another episode about deadheads and music and that whole culture.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
All right. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I hope you agree with me that Dr. Adams has given us a lot of great advice. Acting on that advice isn't easy. Approaching strangers hoping to make friends takes courage. Befriending younger people who may see us as wrinkled remnants of a bygone era is an especially daunting challenge. It sounds so simple, but friendship takes work. We have to overcome some uncomfortable limitations like pride, shyness, and the fear of rejection. The intentionality Dr. Adams emphasizes means making friendship a priority and working at it. And that self-disclosure seems a little bit scary, especially for men used to bottling up our feelings. But the prospect of ending up sitting alone with only the walls to talk to, as our friend Pete Kiesling put it, sounds even worse. You may feel like none of this applies to you. You're lucky if that's true. You may be fine, but I bet that many of your friends are not. Dr. Adams offers us a prescription that can cure this life-threatening affliction of loneliness. Go through your address book. Find some familiar names that make you smile. No matter how long it's been since you last connected, pick up your phone and call them. Try to have a real conversation. Stifle that urge to make it all about you and listen to what they have to say. We need to get off Facebook and really reconnect with old friends and new, in person, and as our friend Dave Silverman says, laugh hysterically, flood your blood with those natural feel-good hormones of endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. These substances are addictive in a good way. Friendship is the cure to loneliness. Just a simple gesture like a card, a call, an invitation will lift us up and leave us and our old friends happier, healthier, and possibly even live longer. A few closing notes. We are planning an episode for the July 4th, 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. We're calling this episode We the People, and we want to hear from as many of you as possible on what this anniversary means to you in your own words. The topic is wide open. Your comment might be a reflection on how we started as a democracy and how far we've come, a reminder of the spirit of the Declaration of Independence, and if we've honored it, a history lesson on that founding document. There's a copy of it on our website. Or a rant on our current political environment. Are we still a democracy? Or you can avoid the rancor and share a special event, picnic, or historical trip you're planning in honor of this anniversary. Whatever it is, we want to hear from you. You can record your message right on our website. Just go to www.ourgenpod.com and click on the yellow microphone icon on any page of the website to record your message. You can even do this from your cell phone. Just go to our website from your cell, read the brief instructions, and then click on the yellow microphone and start your recording. Once you finish your recording, hit send and you're done. Please do this as soon as possible. We need time to listen to your comments and edit them into the program. If you have any questions or difficulty recording your message, you can reach out to me, Julian, at ourgenpod.com, and I will respond as soon as I can. I also want to thank Rob Wilson, our director, for his many hours and creativity editing some long and freewheeling interviews down to the concise episodes you hear. Finally, in the spirit of friendship, if you like what you hear, please tell your friends about our podcast. Help us spread the word. And if you're able, make a donation on our website by clicking on any donate button. Your support is deeply appreciated. Until next time, I'm Julian G. Simmons. Thanks for listening.
Unless otherwise noted, all content in this podcast is copyright unauthorized films. This podcast includes copyrighted material, which has not always been specifically authorized by the copyright owner. This content is used only where it is the specific subject of commentary by us and our guests as part of our effort to advance understanding of issues of social and historical significance. We believe that this constitutes a fair use of the material in accordance with the Fair Use section of U.S. Copyright Law Section 107, which reads, "The fair use of a copyrighted work for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research is not an infringement of copyright." Further information on this claim of fair use may be found on our website at ourgenpod.com.